Recycling, I could be mistaken, but I believe council had asked what the village does for recycling. And so I thought I'd let you know, there's bear-proof bins for cans and bottles at the skate park and at the ballpark. Staff do not collect and sort those cans, given our limited resources, but we found that those cans and bottles seem to find their way to a good home anyway. Parks Administration, Kaslo Baseball Softball Association, they are proceeding with their ballpark improvements, including the installation of fencing by staff. So staff and the association met to hash out exactly who's doing what in line with the resolution that council passed earlier this year. They're also working through their building permit process, which I believe just needs to be paid for, but it's been approved. Kaslo Baseball Softball Association had also indicated previously that they're going to develop a scope of work and budget for netting for the park. And so staff met with them on October 3rd, and it doesn't look like a scope of work and budget or grant funding has been figured out yet. So staff are going to send a letter to KBSA to let them know that village would be keen to kind of see some kind of proposal from them, even if it's, hey, how do we partner with the village to help make this happen? What kind of grant applications do they need letters of support for? And in particular, let them know that if we're not able to get this netting installed by the start of the 2025 season, then council might need to look at what restrictions are needed in order to help protect the village and our taxpayers. Campground, we have an agreement with our operator through 2024, and it can be extended by mutual agreement. So council should expect to see a staff report in the fourth quarter, giving you options for renewal or putting it back out to market. At this time, though, it's worth noting we have hired an arborist to come and take a look at the camper down Elm. So hopefully that gets taken care of this week, and we're in good shape. I'll let you know.
Okay.
With respect to planning and development, there's a regional growth management plan that was being spearheaded by the regional district, and staff can participate through virtual meetings. There was a question last meeting about council participation. The RDCK board had also made similar inquiries about the process. And so the consultant that's been hired to lead that project has not developed an engagement and communications plan yet. But once they have, the RDCK will advise the village how can our council be engaged with it. So stay tuned. Strategic planning, staff are putting together plans for your 2025 strategic priorities, hopefully in October. And that will help feed our 2025 budget deliberations. Recreation and cultural services, we received an email from Jazz Fest. So later this week, they are going to issue a limited supply of 2025 early bird weekend passes to help reward local folks and loyal attendees. Capital projects, a few updates. Our asset management plan, we are awaiting costs from our consultant to help us inventory our existing assets within the water treatment plant and wastewater plants. Active transportation, the consultants have asked for the village to identify 2 elected officials to participate in interviews. So I believe we have a spot on the agenda to have that talked about. There's a questionnaire that will go out to the school in September, an online survey and virtual workshop that will occur in October, and a final draft, once developed, will be presented at an open house during the fourth quarter. The Kaslo Arena, we had a request for proposals for the mechanical system, which was heating, cooling, and ventilation for the viewing area above the ice rink. So that RFP closed at the end of August, and bids exceeded our available funds for that portion of the project. So staff are going to develop a report and present it to council at the October 8th meeting. And we're hoping that we can simply reallocate funds from other aspects of the arena project towards the HVAC component. But we need to take a look at our grant funding application to see what flexibility we have. So October 8th, there should be more info. City Hall, we had an RFP issued for painting that closed at the end of August. And October 8th, there will be a staff report for contract award. Unfortunately, the work won't be able to be completed in 2024, given the contractor's work schedule. So it'll get carried forward to 2025. Front Street Park, we have requested confirmation of start date for that work, the landscaping work, and we're hoping to receive word by the end of the week. So I can provide council an update as soon as I hear back when that work is going to occur. A request for proposal for the pressure reducing valves, which is part of our water supply system, has been issued for design services. It closes mid-September. So a staff report will be coming forward at the October 8th council meeting. And a request for proposal for a development plan for South Kaslo, the lands that are just south of the river that council would like to develop. That has been issued and it closes September 30th. So you should also see a staff report for contract award for October 8th on that one. And hopefully we can get that work. If it can't be completed within 2024, it should be completed by the end of winter 2024 so that we can issue it to developers and start using it as a bit of a marketing tool. I think that sums it up for the CAO report. Thank you, Mayor Hewitt.
Thank you. All right. Any questions? Councillor Leacock, I'll go forward. First of all, did we sign a 2-year agreement with the baseball group this year?
Yes, we signed a 2-year agreement, and the only thing that needs to be determined is the fees for 2025. But the contract is, or the agreement is in place.
Okay. Secondly, can we email requests about things to go on the priority list? Okay. And also for Jazz Fest, like in the event the development goes through, they are aware of the fact that South Beach probably won't be available for Jazz Fest camping possibly. So it should be something they start thinking about, even if it's not next year, but certainly into the future, depending on where the development goes. And the last thing is for the project at the arena, there is a portion of the donation we got for the arena in the reserve fund. And just wanted to make sure that that's protected because that was supposed to be driven by board request. That was from the donee. That's the right one. No.
No, duly noted. Yeah, I have a note of that on our budget.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Bird?
Yep, through the chair, about the traffic, paying particular attention to certain intersections when ICBC has a look about and try to evaluate issues that can be ameliorated. This is a while ago, but the folks who live around the corner of right opposite the public beach, so that's 3rd and Front Street. They tell me that they've seen so many near misses there with pedestrians that they think it's a dangerous intersection. So you could add that one, 3rd and Front.
Anything else? No, Councillor Lang? I've got a couple of things.
with a same issue with the ICBC meeting. One that I think is an issue, and maybe only in the winter time, is the road coming down from the school. So I think it might be 6th Street. There are people who turn on that lower road, on the road up towards the school, and it's on a hill. And the crest of the hill is right there, and so they have to make a really quick turn, and in the winter, it's problematic, because if somebody's coming over the hill and there's all of a sudden a car there, and it's slippery, they can't stop. And also, when they're coming down from the school and turning down towards town, sometimes people will slide through into the road, and we also might want to talk to them about getting signage saying in the winter months, people shouldn't be turning there, and they shouldn't be coming down there. I know we tried it before, had talked about it, but I think that's really dangerous, and especially if you've got freight trucks that are coming up, because if somebody is turning and then they come to a stop to turn on that road, and a freight truck is coming up behind them, and they have to stop on the hill, and it gets stuck, and then that binds up traffic for quite a while, because they don't get moving easily or quickly. We don't have a wrecker big enough to move some of those trucks, so that's always an area that I thought was problematic. So if they can look, but with the eye to it being winter concern, not all year round.
Is that at the top or the bottom of the hill?
So just at the top, near the top, like, so there's the road that goes by, right by the big Heritage House. That
Okay.
street is the
Okay.
one that I mean.
Okay.
And regarding the painting, so the painter will honor the price that they've given for the next year,
Yes, we have not awarded the contract yet.
but okay, but they'll be.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Excellent. Oh, and just to note, I did see somebody emptying the Front Street Park recycling bin, which is wonderful. I don't care who empties it, as long as it gets emptied, and because it doesn't look good if it isn't, and if they're picking up elsewhere, it's obviously somebody who needs them to cash in, so it's great that it's happening. If we can't do it, but that at least the receptacles are provided for people to just deposit their refundables. So that was good. All right. Councillor Lang.
Your comment just brought to mind that I was parked by Front Street Park yesterday and sat there in my vehicle watching one of our local residents fill the garbage can with their household garbage. I think it's a pretty common occurrence at various locations within the community, but I don't know what can be done about it. Yeah, I don't, putting anything on our website might be helpful, but I doubt it. People that are of that ilk are not gonna pay attention anyway. So it is what it is, I guess, but I was just kind of taken aback, that's all.
All right, well, thank you, CEO Baker, and thank you for your questions, council. So we'll move into correspondence. There's one item of correspondence in addition to the circulation package. Were there any items that council wanted to pull for further discussion? Heard.
Yeah, through the chair, I interested in the Y2Y letter, and they are asking if we would like to learn more about that effort to the wildlife corridors, basically a wildlife corridor from Yellowstone to Yukon, and we're within that area. And I guess what I'd like, since they have a lot that are like their data collection has, it's been going on for about 10 years now, and by now they must have pretty amazing amount of data, but I'm thinking in terms of at some point, if we'll ever get as a council asked about Zinkton, that whole. I just think that group, the Y2Y group would be valuable for us to get that kind of information from the people that have all the data about, so that if we ever have to make decisions about, or at least be asked for our opinion, because obviously we can't make decisions on Crown land, but occasionally we do get asked for our opinion. And that we should be as informed as we can be on those things. So I mean, I would, if the council feels is interested in that, then I would welcome a delegation from them, or to have a further information from them.
Well, we actually were asked a few years ago about Zinkton, but it didn't come to us formally for input. But we did have people come and speak to us about the proposal, and we did, I think at that time, express concerns with mostly with increased vehicular traffic. And it was indicated that it could have some economic benefit for the village. But there's a closer development of the same type of thing that really doesn't benefit our village financially, because they're based out of New Denver. But there would be increased road traffic, and would the ministry fix up the road? Because it's not adequate if they're going to have that much more traffic. And you know, information is good to have, but I don't know whether that's something that we should be asking for, like that, for the engagement when it has to come to us, right? Are we going to start reaching out and looking for problems to solve? And because really these things aren't within our borders, right? It's not, it would be more of a regional district item. So area H was very affected by, or is potentially affected by the Zinkton proposal. So council, I think, pretty much decided that we weren't going to enter into the fray because we weren't very impacted, or, you know, the potential wasn't really demonstrated at that time. And we haven't actually heard anything since. No. But, there's nothing wrong with it, getting information, but whether we need it, yeah.
Okay.
All right. So then it's time for public questions, if there are any. Do you have any questions, Rachel?
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so we'll move into business. First item is the price of tax exemption bylaw. So this is to consider giving second and third reading. So if there's any additional comments or questions that have arisen since the last meeting, and based upon, corporate officer has made some changes to the bylaw. So there's numbers in there that the one column is just shows the municipal portion that is exempted, but also goes on to explain when we exempt, we automatically, the exemption goes for all the other taxing authorities as well. So our value was, I can't remember, 32,000 and change is what is spread over our tax base. So if there was any question about addition of the new property or any changes to the term or anything like that, now is the time to speak. And there are timelines that were outlined, so we, for the advertising to happen and for it to come into force in time, we need to make a decision tonight. So the recommendation is that the permissive tax exemption bylaw 1306/2024 be read a second and third time. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Leawood. And discussion? Councillor Bird?
Through the chair, I was just wondering if the Senior Shelter Society had specifically been asked if they would, whether it was entirely initiated from their part or if there was any communication directly from the village.
So they responded to the ad that we placed in the paper,
Okay.
or maybe on the website. Yeah, they responded to a public notice. It was unsolicited.
Do you have any supplemental?
Yeah, I do feel like you have a second option here. Bearing in mind that it was an unsolicited request and that they have not so far taken advantage of a permissive tax notice. And given that there's another affordable housing complex that cannot get a permissive tax exemption, I do rather like the option that you put down in our recommendation. So that would mean that would mean not a revision, a friendly amendment or an amendment probably to the motion that you read out.
I'll interrupt you there. It's been moved and seconded, so if you state your case and then if council votes to not pass the recommendation, but so, yeah, go ahead and speak, and then we'll do the vote, and then there's always the option for the mover to withdraw. But yeah, no, go ahead. Now is the time to speak, because you got to convince, if you want something different, convince.
So one of the options that was presented in our package was to give second reading to the bylaw with specified changes that we would specify that will take effect for 2025. This could include removing Kaslo Senior Shelter Society, which has not received the permissive exemption in the past, just on a question of fairness. So that would be, if this motion is defeated, then I would propose another motion that would pretty much follow that wording, to give that the motion would be for us to give second reading to the bylaw, and the specified change that would take effect in 2025 would be that no new permissive tax exemptions be granted.
Councillor Leawood.
To the chair. So this is just a question related to what you said about one, housing development not being able to, because Mayor Hewitt mentioned last time, in the agreement we made, like when it was being built, that was part of it, that 70% was going to be permissive, like tax exempt.
It's not permissive, it's a mandatory.
Or a mandatory exception, so it has already been, exempt, or most of it.
There's a statutory exemption.
Right.
Corporate Officer Alloway can probably expand on that.
So I think the important thing to keep in mind is that for both the Penny Lane Apartments and I believe also for Abbey Manor, we're going to have a good documentation for Abbey Manor because they're new to this process. But certainly for the Penny Lane Apartments, there are some tax exemptions that are occurring there. So the values that we see as being taxable are not the full values of the property for that.
Go ahead, Councillor Bird.
BC assessment assessed it on the entire value of it, and they will change it for 2025. Information directed from BC assessment.
To staff, what is the value of Kaslo Housing Society? Well, it doesn't even show up because it's a statutory exemption, right?
No, it's showing a total value of $1.598 million. Of which, $397,000 is the land value, and the improvements are valued at just over 1.2 million. It is classed entirely as residential.
So while I do support what you're saying about the new applicant, because I believe that the value that there is, what we're wanting to look at over the next year is what parts of properties that are fully exempt at this point have portions of it that probably should be taxable because they're revenue generating. So adding an exemption for them, because theirs is at 251,000. So I believe that is the land value that isn't being occupied by the suites. So, and that's what churches are, right? They don't get the exemption on their land. So I actually agree with not granting it, because if we end up doing something different for next year, then we've given them the exemption to it for a single year. I think we need to use this year to gather information rather than saying, you know, we'll give it to you then this year, but then we're going to take it back. And, you know, whether now is the time to have the discussion about Penny Lane. I think we can all recognize that $1 million isn't the value of that property, because it costs more to construct that property. That is the price of the market units at $300,000 a piece. And that's the part where there was in the agreement that the market rent units were not going to get an exemption because they're at market rent. So, but that could be something that staff could inquire with the assessment authority on, because they will have the full value of the property, not just the taxable value of the property, because we get the representation on the taxable value on this chart, not the full value, market value of the property that's being assessed. And there are some of them that will be reduced. So anyhow, that was just discussion regarding the motion, and so the motion's on the table to give it second and third reading. So is there any further discussion before I call the question? And calling the question, no, and discussion. Councillor, sorry. No, that's okay. I'm giving people the chance before I call the question, because that terminates the discussion altogether. Yeah.
I'm just unclear what exactly you want us to do. Like, you don't want us to pass the current motion as it stands.
So you want, so if I may,
Yes.
if this motion is defeated, there's nothing to stop me from making another motion. And the other motion would be to give second reading to the bylaw with the specified change that no new permissive tax exemptions be granted in the village of Kaslo for the year 2025.
I'll assist you with the wording if we get to that. Like,
Okay, perfect.
All right, so on the motion that's been moved and seconded, any further discussion? Okay, so all the questions. Those in favor of giving it third reading, second and third reading? Those opposed? So that motion is defeated. Councillor Bird.
Through the chair, may I make a motion with the help of our corporate officer?
So I would suggest, I believe that this is the intent, so to let's have a motion that risk of tax exemption bylaw number 1306, 2024 be read in a second and third time as amended to remove any permissive tax exemption for the property owned by the Kaslo Seniors Shelter Society. Because the bylaw has been presented with that in, and there have been some other changes from prior years because of some of the changes that we found with the statutory exemptions and the permissive exemptions. So I think that for greater clarity, we want to specify what we are taking out of the bylaw as presented quite clearly.
I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Bird, seconded by Councillor Leafwood. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. And so that it's then implicit in that the staff will be investigating the revenue generating portions or the Kaslo District Senior Citizens Shelter Society application and
They will not be receiving a permissive tax exemption from the village this year. They may still be entitled to some statutory exemptions that are already in place, and this would not impact them at all.
All right, so the next item is the Library Building Committee terms of reference. This is to consider making changes to their terms of reference. So recommendation is that the terms of reference for the Library Building Committee be amended to include a member of the public. Moved by Councillor Leafwood, seconded by Councillor Lang. Discussion? All those in favor? Ms. Carey. And the second motion is that Ian Dunlop be appointed as the public representative for the Library Building Committee. By Councillor Leafwood, seconded by Councillor Lang. Any discussion? All those in favor? Ms. Carey. Pavement management plan. Did you want to speak to this at all, CAO Baker, or you actually spoke to it last meeting, didn't you, or?
Mayor, I would believe enough information is likely been given to council and
Right, so the recommendation is that a pavement management plan be developed as part of the paving project within the 2024 capital budget as detailed in the staff report titled Pavement Management Plan dated August 28, 2024, moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Next item is the letter of support for the seniors fall paving. So the recommendation is that a letter of support be provided to the Kaslo Area Seniors Citizen Society in support of their grant application to New Horizons for Seniors Program for accessibility improvements at the seniors. By Councillor Leafwood, seconded by Councillor Lang. Any discussion? Councillor Bird.
Through the chair. Again, another subject I know nothing about, road building. If you're going to put a 6-foot paved strip against the building, and I imagine it would be close by the building, you've got one bare lane and then a little strip of grass before the fence on the Kemble side. And when it comes to plowing, and then maybe Councillor Lang could help on this, I'm just concerned that the laneway right there is not in great shape anyway. And if it ever gets paved, it'll have to be, like I said, I know nothing about this, but I imagine it would have to be resurfaced, like it would, you'd have to use a grader and get down there and scrape away all the potholes. And just wondering if this sidewalk that they're envisioning that would be 6 feet wide would cause future problems that maybe in the design of that sidewalk could be talked through with Public Works, or find a way that it's not going to present problems in future years should that laneway ever get improved.
Daniel Baker, I know you had some discussions, so you want to?
No, thank you, Mayor Hewitt. So when the letter of support probably makes good sense if it's approved by council. If approved, then staff would meet with the senior society and talk to them about what's an appropriate width and construction. So before they proceed, it's going to need to be okayed. The design is going to need to be okayed by staff to make sure it doesn't impact snow removal or anything else. Generally speaking, I don't think we would pave a portion of an alleyway. This is a bit of an extenuating circumstance where we're looking to provide accessible access to the building. And so staff are trying to accommodate their requests and providing a letter of support and letting them proceed with the planning while we stand in the background and make sure the design is okay, is how staff envision us proceeding.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor.
I think the particular grant that they are applying for has a deadline date as well. So I think that's one of the reasons why they're looking for that letter right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only a few days from now, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so any further discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. So 7.5, procurement and asset disposal. You want to speak to that at all, Leo Baker?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Hewitt. One of council's strategic priorities is reviewing and amending or rescinding any policies that are outdated. And throughout the year, the CAOs receive feedback from staff that there's certain sections of our existing purchasing policy that are onerous and a hinder to staff performing projects or just going through our day-to-day activities. And so those are highlighted in the staff report, the use of purchase orders, as well as being required to come back to council potentially multiple times for the same project to award contracts. And so staff's effort here is simply to streamline the process, save staff time, but still retain council's overall financial oversight for all of our purchasing. So the goal is to have a policy in place that council's well aware of and understands. And when you approve your financial plan, you're giving staff authority to operationalize what your goals are. And then we follow this policy for those purchases you've already approved. Wouldn't want council to have the impression that staff are somehow able to purchase things we couldn't have in the past. Everything's status quo. We're just removing these things that were a bit onerous. And we're making changes to the approval levels. So instead of more or less everything coming to council, the CAO, CFO is now going to be allowed to approve purchases up to a certain dollar value. And maybe just one step further, if there's ever a project that council wants to come back to them for approval, no matter what the dollar value is, then that can be specified, and we just put this policy off to the side and we come back to council for approval.
Anyone have any questions before? Counselor Leeson.
This isn't really, it's not specifically a question about, the policy in like financially, but we had resolved a few years ago that we would really try to support local contractors and local bidding. So I don't know if they're, like, if we just continue to try and do that, or if it becomes part of the policy, or I just want to make sure we're still moving in that direction.
Thank you, Mayor Hewitt. So what we've included in this policy is language that requires staff to get at least one local quote, if possible, whenever we're making any purchase. It doesn't matter what the dollar value is. And so there's also other language within the policy that hints at social procurement, which means that no matter what dollar value, staff need to think about what the impact on our local economy would be if we don't award it locally. And so although we're not giving favoritism to local businesses, we are requiring that staff consider local purchases. The other aspect of social procurement that maybe isn't directly mentioned in the policy, but it's a part of it, would be the environmental impact, greenhouse gases. So if we're awarding a contract, but it's going to drastically increase the amount of greenhouse gases for transportation or supply of goods and services, well, then that would form part of the staff analysis that then gets either sent to the CAO for review or to council for final approval. So social procurement and local purchasing is absolutely a part of the policy.
Counselor Byrne.
Through the chair, I have one question and I have a comment. I'm not sure I understand what a cooperative purchasing is.
Is that the question or the comment?
That's the question. Sorry, that's the question. Can you give a definition of cooperative purchasing and an example?
Yes, through the chair. Cooperative purchasing has become a much bigger deal in local government in recent years. There's a canoe procurement. And so contractors have already been approved and put in bids for various products and services that local governments typically purchase. They've gone through the competitive bid process. So I'll give you an example. It's close to my heart. Ice resurfacers, the Zamboni. So they've already provided bids to canoe procurement. They've gone through the competitive bidding process and established what the rate would be, the fee would be, or the purchase price. So then communities can purchase that ice resurfacer at that price that's already gone through competitive bidding. And so the reason that the price through this canoe procurement, as an example, is competitive and better is because they're expecting there to be dozens or hundreds of purchases made for this product. And so they've given the best possible price they can give already. And that allows the village to take advantage of this cooperative purchasing. Did I explain that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
And you.
Yeah, and the comment I have is, it's on, it's page 11 of the bylaw itself, when you talk, it's right at the top, it says social procurement is a procurement practice that seeks to leverage existing procurement activities to achieve positive social outcomes, and such as that align with community values and the village's strategic plan. The only comment I'd have, I would like to see that align with values expressed in the official community plan, as well as our village's strategic plan, because that was a people-driven, like a resident-driven official community plan. Of course, it was led by the village, but so far, all talk about social value, it is always going back to council's strategic plan, but I think it also should reflect our official community plan. Just a detail.
You'll just take that under, will that be reflected in the policy, or does it have to be named in the policy? Is that what you're looking for?
I think
Is
it
to have
should
it amended to include the OCP? So in that case, would we well, that's probably an easy change to make, so we can still move the motion with the note that staff will make that change. If there's no reason that it should not be made. That staff.
Through the chair, staff can include reference to the OCP in addition to strategic priorities. And if it's agreeable with council, staff can simply take that information and make the change unless it's communicated here that
We're not all in favor.
not in favor.
So does any member of council have any issue with having it reference the OCP as well? No? Okay. All right, thank you. Any further discussion then for the recommendation? Which is that the procurement and asset disposal policy be adopted effective immediately.
I think that we should have a resolution that says that the procurement and asset policy, procurement and asset disposal policy be adopted as amended to include reference to alignment with the official community plan as well as the corporate strategic plan. Would that be acceptable to everybody? Just because it's been presented on the open agenda in a form that is not exactly what is going to be adopted, so it would be nice to have that clarification in the resolution.
Okay, awesome. Is that acceptable? All right. So any discussion on that, the motion as it was read out and the mover and seconder will be in favor of that, those changes, and that's great. So to call the question, all those in favor? Motion is carried. So now I think this is probably why Colin is here, and we should have reordered the agenda. So but maybe you've been entertained. So did you, so the Kemble Innovation Center contract award for heating, ventilation, and cooling upgrade. Did you want to speak to that, or Colin, our manager of strategic initiatives?
Yes, thank you. So through the chair, well, obviously we went out for an RFP for the heating, cooling and ventilation design done through Rocky Point Engineering for the facility, and we got, excuse me, a spread of tender returns, and we did our due diligence and assessed the tender returns. In the staff report, we have proposed that Case Grip Mechanical and Martech Electrical be awarded the contract for those works.
Recommendation is that Case Grip Mechanical be awarded the contract for mechanical construction services for heating, ventilation, and cooling package, all for the sum of $177,310, excluding applicable taxes as outlined in the proposal dated August 8, 2024, and further that staff be authorized to execute the contract. Moved by Councillor Bird, seconded by Councillor Leafwood. Any discussion? All those in favor? Ms. Carey. And that Martech Electrical Systems be awarded the contract for electrical services for the Kemble Memorial Members HVAC project, all for the sum of $35,196 as outlined in their proposal dated August 30th, 2024. Moved by Councillor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bird. Any discussion? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Colin, and it's nice to see things happening at the building. Thank you very much for your work on that. And then is this probably another one that for yourself, the water treatment plant contract award?
Yes, so through the chair, we did a public RFP for the ultraviolet treatment reactors, and we got again a spread of returns from 4 proponents. Staff have, along with Kerwood Lydell, spent the last couple of weeks doing their due diligence and assessment of all proposals, and assessed Trojan Technologies to be the best product on the market for the village, particularly because of the support and the whole life warranty they provide. So a much better product for longevity for the village and supporting on its water treatment facility.
Thank you, Colin. Yes,
Ask that we make an amendment to the recommendation.
yes.
So if we can indicate that staff would negotiate an amount up to $276,640 to give staff some flexibility to work with the supplier to get the best price possible, up to specified amount.
All right, so that Trojan Technologies be, or no, that staff be permitted to negotiate with Trojan Technologies for the contract for the supply and commissioning of ultraviolet treatment reactors for the water treatment plant, upgrades, capital project to an amount up to $276,640 as outlined in their project proposal. Okay. Or if I were, that was just me quickly saying it on the fly, so. Great. So is everything clear then, what we're doing? All right, and so is somebody going to make that motion? Councillor Leaflet and Councillor Byrd. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried. All right. Thanks very much, Colin. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you all.
Colin, bye-bye. Colin. All right, so we have no late items. The recommendation is that council now recess and reconvene in camera with the public excluded under sections 91C and L of the community charter to consider employee relations and discussions with municipal officers respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports. Moved by Councillor Leafwood, second by Councillor Lang. All those in favor? Motion carried.